Hi all, welcome to Beanie Composter. Today we've got top end composter versus just a basic to see how quick the Hotbin can really digest food compared to a normal Dalek. And I know what you're all thinking, shouldn't I have given this a clean before we start this experiment? Well, you know what they say, you can polish a turd, you can roll it in glitter, but at the end of the day it's still a turd, so I'm not going to give it a clean. Mrs. B is laughing, but yeah, it's under some trees, birds are doing their stuff on it all the time, so yeah, I'm just not going to bother giving that a clean. The Mini on the other hand is all cleaned up, so we're almost starting it from brand new. And I will be starting these exactly the same, so we'll be putting in exactly the same waste into each compost bin, the exactly the same amount, and we'll see what breaks down best. So Hotbin versus a cold Dalek. All I am going to say is I won't be putting things like eggshells, cooked meats, bones, things that you can normally put into a Hotbin, just purely because you wouldn't be putting stuff like that into a Dalek because it would attract vermin and things that you don't want to attract. So it's just going to solely be grass clippings and garden waste. So we're going to put perennial weeds in there. I know, not ideal, but we just want to see how quick the Hotbin does compared to a Dalek. So I'm not going to bore everyone with how to start up the Hotbin. You've all seen videos on the channel. If you haven't, then just look for them on how to start the Hotbin up. So we're going to just do that the same as normal. Like I say, there won't be cooked meats and that going in, which you wouldn't do on a startup anyway. It's the middle of June now, so it's actually very warm on the outside, so that's going to give the Dalek a little bit of an advantage. So we're going to add in chippings and paper just as we would with the Hotbin. Join us soon. A month into the experiment, we're going to show you what's been happening with the temperatures. I've not been able to feed this, every other day, so it's been roughly about once or twice a week, so we're not as hot as I would like to be, but we're still keeping the Hotbin pretty warm, so that's good. But I'll show you what's going on between each bin at the moment. Quite warm on the dial, so halfway in the green there. If I give it a little stir up, we have got nice steam coming out there. I'm going to give this a feed today and that will probably boost the temperature up, but as I'm saying, not as hot as I would like at this time of year, but that's just due to me not feeding it enough. The cold composting bin, that literally the same stuff has been going in, we'll see what the temperature's like in here. As you can see there, the temperatures in the cold compost bin isn't anywhere near as hot as in the Hotbin, and you wouldn't expect it to be, even though the outside temperatures have been quite good. One thing I have noticed while doing this experiment is with the cold composting bin, every time I sort of go to open up the lid, I get a lot of flies coming out. And that's one good thing with the Hotbin, is every time you open the lid you don't ever get flies coming out. A month on, and paper that's gone in at the very first stage is still paper, and not a lot is really happening as is expected with a cold composting bin. Now with the Hotbin, it's only been a month so far, but let's have a look at how things are progressing with this compared to the cold composting bin. And as you can see straight away, what a difference. And that's just after 1 month. Even though I said I wasn't going to put cooked meats in there, I have put eggshells and a few bones once it was up to Hotbin temperatures and we were hot enough to do that. But generally there isn't enough food going in here. It normally all gets eaten, so there's not a lot of cooked meats and food going into this one. But I am putting eggshells and meat bones if there are some left over, because what's the point of having the hot bin if you're not going to do that? And although they're not going into the cold composting bin, it's kind of, I don't think that's going to make any difference to the actual temperatures anyway, so I just want to utilize this to the maximum, and that's the reason you would buy one anyway. But we'll carry on. I'll give it another month or so. Hopefully I can keep the temperatures nice and hot, but as you can see so far, it's a huge difference. So I haven't recorded how much leachate we're making from the hot bin, but I would say we've probably filled up a couple of pints worth so far. So I'll show you what's coming out today. Crikey guys, you're just in time. The ice cream van's just turned up, so I'll get us all a 99er, shall I? So it's probably about a week ago was the last time I emptied this leachate, so that's probably your average amount with the temperatures we're running at. And we've had a few days where it may have rained a little bit. Not that that makes a huge amount of difference, but I'm sure some rain does sort of enter the hot bin when it does rain. But doing well with leachate, and as you can see so far progress is looking pretty good with the hot bin. It's been a couple of hours since we last filmed that little clip beforehand, and I left the dial in the Dalek, so I'm just going to show you quickly. Like I say, this is an experiment, not an exact science, so when I'm feeding them, I'm literally spreading the feed between both of them. And as I said, in the hot bin I am putting some cooked food, so there's some potato skins. I've just put some rib bones in there, so I'll show you what I've put in there and how I'm dealing with both of them at the moment. So I've already put the feed in here, and as with any normal hot bin that I use, I've just put the stuff in here like this. So I'm putting the, the garden waste, some paper and a little bit of chippings as bulking agent, and I just give that a stir in. And occasionally with this mini I've had to go real deep just to get things sort of ignited again, because it's gone a little bit cold where I've not been able to feed it as much, or we didn't have enough waste at the time. But that's all I'm doing with that. I've left the dial in there for a couple of hours now, so you'll see the temperature's actually gone up a little bit more. Although it's not in the green, it's not far off, so have a look. So the dial's over here now, and considering this is just a Dalek and not insulated, that's not actually bad temperatures, but we're not in the green, so you wouldn't be putting any cooked meats or raw meats or cooked food in there, so I'm not doing that. But still good temperatures, I would say. Have a look in here. I'm just putting the stuff in and giving it a mix up like I would do with the hot bins. So we've got the paper and wood chippings and the garden waste and kitchen caddy waste, and I'm just literally giving that a little stir around like I would do in the hot bin as well. So I'm not really doing anything different between them both. But just to show you again what the hot bin's at. We've just put cold waste in there, so it's going to take a little while to come up, but we were in the green halfway with that one, so I'd expect after an hour or so this will be back into the green and starting to get a lot hotter than the middle. So next time I give it a feed, which will be in a couple of days time, I would hope to see that around the 60-degree mark. We've now gone through most of summer with the Hotbin versus the cold composting experiment, and it's been warm during that period, which has really helped the cold composting bin keep things quite warm. But yesterday we had the first frost here. We're in mid-October, and that really is going to play a part with the cold composting bin now. I'll show you how full we are. I have actually emptied the Mini once since we've been doing this experiment because it was getting so full and the temperature started to drop, but I'll show you what temperatures are going on in both at the moment and where we're at with the levels of fill. So with the Mini, I've already taken out a large black bag's worth of compost, which is already in good condition. You could use that straight away. And like I say, the Mini went cold, it was getting quite full, so I had to take some out of that. But let's look inside the Mini, see what temperature we're running at and how full that is at the moment. Inside the Mini we've got steam coming out, but we are only just in the green at the moment. That's dropping because it's quite cold outside quite quickly. I need to feed this now, so hopefully a good feeder bring it up, but you can see with the steam coming out we're nice and hot, and with a good stir up we're almost just half full there. But as I say, that needs a feed today, and I've been able to feed it quite regularly just recently, but there have been a few times where I haven't been able to give it a good feed and the temperature has dropped a bit, but at present we're doing really well with this one. With the cold composting bin, one thing I do notice every time I lift the lid off, there's a lot of bugs and that inside it, so I think hopefully that'll come out on the camera. I've only just put the thermometer in there, so let's see what temperature it gets up to and you'll see how full it is. I'll give it a bit of a stir around, but it's not breaking down that much at the moment. During the summer when we had like really hot temperatures, it was breaking down quite quick, but during like the colder weather that slowed down. So have a look where we're at with the cold composting bin. So I can feel some heat in here, and we're not in the green, but we're at about 20 degrees, which isn't bad considering we had a frost last night. I'll give this a stir up and you'll see it is breaking down a little bit, but clearly not as fast as the Hotbin. But we're not doing too badly, I suppose. But it's clear to see that the Hotbin is definitely breaking down stuff a lot quicker. But that's where we're at the moment, and I haven't emptied this one, but like I say, I have emptied the Hotbin, but I can actually see a bit of steam as I'm stirring that around. But I'll carry on with this experiment during the colder months and we'll see how we go. It's been over a year now since we started this experiment, and I think today we're going to conclude what results we've got. I've had to empty the Mini probably 3 or 4 times. Just recently was like it wasn't actually heating up too well. It was just around about the 40, and then it would go cold and it wasn't really getting that hot when I fed it. And I actually took you can see it's actually quite dirty. I took everything apart, put the hose pipe in and just completely cleaned it out and refilled it up. And if we have a look what's happening now, you'll see that we've achieved really good temperatures since we've done that. So have a quick look. So inside, dials over the green, which is fantastic. Really great to have it hot. What I do is I take this one out, and while I continue chatting, we put this one, you can see it's going down now, but we put that into the just a normal composting bin and see what temperatures we get up to there. I just put a little bit of grass trimmings in this the other day, so that's probably going to give it a bit of heat, but we'll see what that gets up to. So for a whole year, through hot and cold, whatever the weather, I've been feeding pretty much the same over that year. The only difference being in the hot bin, I've been putting like cooked food, bread, things like that, which I wouldn't put in the normal composting bin, just in case we attract vermin and flies and bits and pieces like that. As you saw in there, there was a thick lump of grass because I just literally a couple of days ago, like I say, this one went cold and I just cut the grass just to get, you know, just to fill this one in over the hatch, and I put a little bit in there while I was doing it. But generally speaking, they've both had the same stuff each time, so bulking agent and paper going into the normal hot composter as well as the hot bin, but only food going into this one. Now over that year, the hot bin, it's achieved really good temperatures, but there's been periods where it's gone cold. I've had to get it hot again. It's not been completely straightforward, and you know, there are times when it does become a bit of a hassle, especially if you can't be with the hot bin all the time. It does take a lot of nurturing, which I haven't always had time to do, but every time I've fed the bins, they've pretty much had the same. Now, first of all, we'll look at the normal composter and we'll see what we've created, how much waste has gone down and what it's looking like from that. So let's have a look back at the dial now. That should have given it time to give a reading of what's good and what's not, and we'll look at what we've produced with the normal composting bin. So the Dalek, it's been pretty warm. Like I think not yesterday, the day before, we were up to like nearly 30 degrees air temperature around Surrey, so a hot day. But as you can see there, it's nearly in the green, which is great for just a normal Dalek composter. And like I said, I did cut some of the grass, so that's probably given a bit of heat into it. I didn't stir it round because I knew we were filming today, and that would be the end of it, but we're actually achieving good temperatures there, and I can feel heat coming out of it, so to be honest, that's pretty good. Let's take out the hatch door thing and see what we're looking like there. So if we look at the front there, you can clearly see that nothing here is really broken down. I'll get a tray and we'll start taking some out and we'll see what it looks like all the way through. As we can see, a lot of dry stuff, paper and that, hasn't actually broken down, and certain things, although it's dried, it's not broken down very well. If we start digging into the centre a bit more, the actual compost that is coming out isn't too bad, and I'd say that's acceptable to go onto your garden as a mulch. So from the middle, we're looking like no different to what comes out of the hot bin, so I'd say quite nice, sticky, would do nicely as a mulch. But as you can see here, from the edges, all around the edges, it's dry and nothing's broken down, so we're not actually, we've done okay in the very center, but the rest of it is, you know, dry and probably needed watering and more attention. With the hot bin, we've produced 5 quite large buckets and bags of compost, and as it's come out of the hot bin, you could put that straight into the garden as a mulch, and if you store it, you're going to end up with better compost as well. So I'll go through some of the compost, show you what it's looking like and the difference between this compost and the one that's coming out of the Dalek. So in this one we've got quite a lot of worms, which is really good because it's going to just continue breaking down. As you can see here with the Hotbin compost, it's nice and moist, sticks together really well, and because it's a sealed unit, the actual steam is producing moisture within the Hotbin. You're actually getting leachate out of it as well. So if we look how much leachate over that year we've managed to save, now not all of this has been saved out of the Hotbin because sometimes I've put it on the garden when I've taken it out, but this is just a guide of how much we've had over a year, and it's quite a bit. I think you'd be surprised to see. So we've collected it in milk bottles, so we've managed to collect about 7 4-pinters of leachate over the year, and like I say, if I didn't throw some of it on the garden and use it, we'd probably have at least 10 bottles, I'd say. So that's a real bonus that you're getting from the Hotbin that you're not going to get from just a normal Dalek. I think we all knew that the Hotbin was going to win this competition hands down, and I think what surprised me the most is I've been emptying the Hotbin for years and years, and I know how good the compost is that comes out of it and how much it produces, but I did think after a year that the Dalek would have produced a bit more ready-made compost than we have, so I think that's a little bit of a surprise to me. With a bucket like this, I don't think we would fill this twice with the stuff in the Dalek, but like I say, with the Hotbin we've produced loads and loads of compost, as you can see, and there's other benefits with the Hotbin. As you can see, you're not going to end up with loads of slugs and creepy crawlies in your actual Hotbin, whereas with the Dalek you are going to end up with quite a lot of stuff like that. So if you were using it in the garden, you're probably going to end up with lots of slug eggs and things like that, so that's one thing to be mindful of as well. When it comes to leachate, you're not going to get anything out of this, and in terms of looking after both of them, I would have to say probably the Hotbin, once you've got it going and you understand the principles of it, it's probably actually easier to run a Hotbin than it is a Dalek to produce good compost. So, well, there's only one winner today, and I think it's safe to say that the Hotbin is still king of the road. Now the missus says I sound miserable and I'm as flat as a pancake, so I thought to cheer you all up just at the end of the video, Mrs. B is going to come and chat about her composting adventures at her school where she does the garden, and I think when she explains you're going to realise that probably if you are going to use a Dalek you would probably need to have multiple ones to actually compost properly, but let her tell you about her experience with the Dalek and it'll give you a little bit more of an insight, and hopefully she'll be a bit more cheerful than me.
I don't know about cheerful because I'm not great on this side of the camera. I feel more confident filming and editing rather than talking, but never mind. Yeah, so at school I have 3 Dalek composters. They're identical to this really. I usually use one intensely, so we put mostly fruit and vegetable peeling. I don't allow any bread and anything else apart from fruit and veg, so it's quite moist. Also, obviously there is some trimmings from the garden, but mostly it's deadheading, a few twigs, things like that go in between. Sometimes leaves as well. We've got massive oak trees around, so sometimes we break this brown stuff and just add to it. I don't add any paper. Occasionally, maybe if we have some deliveries in a paper, but most of the time we don't. So what do we do? I fill it in, and then at the end of summer, when we break for summer holidays, I don't put anything else in. And then back in September, I use another one. And then I leave the full one over winter, and I don't let anybody add absolutely anything to it. And then at the end of January, February time, we empty the bin. I think last year we had about 6 buckets full, and it was nicely composted. I would compare it to really the Hotbin compost. It was quite nice. But I think maybe because it was quite wet, because obviously all fruit are quite wet, it was quite nice and sticky. However, we did have loads of slugs. I mean, loads of slugs. So I always use it as a mulch. I won't ever put any seedlings in this compost because I know they're going to be slug eggs inside it. But obviously, as a mulch in winter, it's perfect because then it breaks down, and for spring, it's actually nicely rotten into the raised beds. Yeah, and obviously in this time when nothing really grows, I have birds coming and just picking these little slugs or eggs or whatever it's in there. So it's actually quite successful. But as I say, I think you need to have at least 2 Daleks to actually do it the way we do it. I don't know, it works for us, but I am thinking of getting maybe second-hand Hotbin. The only thing is we have mice as well, and squirrels. So I don't know, I'm a little bit in 2 minds. Maybe I borrow a brain for that. Okay, that's it. That's the school experience. Good one.
So that completes the Hotbin versus the Dalek experiment. I think what I'm going to do with this is I just will add it into the Hotbin, and that'll hopefully break down really quick, and with the temperatures we're achieving at the moment, that shouldn't take too long to turn into compost. Whereas I probably would have to like stop adding stuff to this and leave it for a good year before we actually get any real decent compost from it. Now I don't know if you can hear that, but the ice cream man's just arrived, so it's time for me to get a 99er. So until next time, happy composting and enjoy.